What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Obviously, I'm still in my car. I'm still sort of on vacation, but I still want to cover Season 3. First thing I want to talk about, so Season 3 had a ton of weapon changes for the snipers, as well as the rest of the guns, and I've got the vast majority of those up on TGD already. I've done all the updates I can, but I do need to actually get in and test some of the sniper rifle changes, because they didn't give full details about some things, but most of the damage ranges are up to date. The one-shot potential is up to date, but obviously I'm going to cover all of that in this video that we know already. But I just want to let you know that all the assault rifles, snipers, SMGs, all those changes are up to date on TrueGameData.com, so you can start using that. And I also kept the pre-nerf version of guns, so like the BREN, XM4, some of the other guns that had like base weapon changes. I kept the pre-nerf version, so you can compare that to the current version as well. But I wanted to cover that real quick. But today's video is just going to be going through the patch notes, talking about the sniper changes and showing you the numbers behind the sniper changes, as well as just the general changes to the meta with the weapon updates. Alright, so first up, first page of patch notes, just Iron Trials. They brought Iron Trials back for Caldera. I think this might be the first time we've had Iron Trials in Caldera. I'm not positive. But basically this is the higher health mode, slower regen for your health as well. Makes things like stims much more important, gives much longer TTKs. This is going to be basically the 400 health option on TGD, so if you're looking for the meta for Iron Trials, you can go on tgd.gg and set your health to 400 and see how all the TTKs line up. But yeah, not a lot to talk about here. It's the same as the Iron Trials we've had before, just in Caldera now. Next up, quick note on Rebirth. So they've removed Handgun Charlie, which is the Diamatti, from the rotation for potential spawn-in weapons on Rebirth. That's really good, because if you've ever played Rebirth, you know the Diamatti rounds they can be really frustrating, because even if you get a loadout, people are dropping out of the air with the Diamatti, which is such a good gun that it can kill you so quickly, that they can just completely surprise you and take you out when they shouldn't even have any sort of advantage. So that's a good change there. Obviously, we have a new Gulag with Season 3, so they say it's a roughly symmetrical arena, so I haven't seen this yet, but new Gulag for Season 3. New location, dig site. They've teased this for a while. Basically, it's kind of teasing at the May 11th update with King Kong and Godzilla. See how that goes. I hope it's cool. I don't know if it's going to be any good, but I hope it's cool. So this new dig site's just going to have a bunch of different loot, things like that. Updated locations. So they updated Peak. I'll throw a screenshot of that up on the screen right now. You've probably seen this because it's been out for a while, but Peak's fully updated. They've got a bunch more places to fight, new levels to the all the different areas at Peak, and it's just going to be a nice update. I think Peak was kind of a hot spot early on, but then it kind of cooled down for a while, and this will probably make it another hot drop again. Runway, which is like northeast part of Caldera, that has been updated as well. It was kind of a barren area before. It just had a runway and like a helicopter spawn with a few sparse buildings, but now it's going to have a bunch more stuff up there, so that's good. And then Lagoon, which is where like the lighthouse was. Nobody ever went to Lagoon because it was on the edge of the map and there just wasn't any loot or anything. So now there's going to be some new stuff there, so that's good as well. I'm not going to cover everything in this video. I'm just going to cover the things that I think are the most important. So SABOTAGE Contract, they've added a contract. It's called Sabotage, and basically this is going to have you go destroy a vehicle somewhere on the map. And if you destroy that vehicle, it's going to spawn in an armored truck for you to drive around the map. So I'm assuming this will be the same armored truck that's been on Rebirth recently, and if so, I think it'll be a lot better on Caldera than it was on Rebirth. On Rebirth, people don't even go try to get it very often. It's just not that good on that map. But I think on Caldera, because the map is bigger and you need a vehicle anyway a lot of the time to get around the map, having a big 50 cal gun on the top of your Bertha is going to be great. So I do think it's going to be a little bit better there. So there's also going to be these new high value loot zones. Basically, this is going to be a money symbol on the map, and that's going to indicate that there's going to be really high value loot there. I think that's cool. Also, gas masks have been adjusted some more, so gas masks no longer interrupt the falling player. So you'll always be able to pull your chute, which is great, because if you ever got in the gas and you couldn't pull your chute, that's just an incredibly frustrating way to die. It also won't play the animation when a player is ADS'd and affected by the gas from the Nebula 5 rounds. So this is kind of just making it work for the Nebula 5 rounds like it did for the regular gas before. They've made some pretty big changes to the most wanted contracts, so now it kind of works more like, almost like Rebirth. So if you get a most wanted contract, it starts at 3 or 4 minutes to get your whole team back. But now if you eliminate an opponent, It reduces that timer by 20 seconds. Opening a supply box reduces it by 5 seconds. Basically, they're trying to push people to move around the map more where they have most wanted. And obviously, you get rewarded for doing things with the most. So I think that's pretty cool. You also can no longer ping people. So you know how before, if somebody had a most wanted on a different team, you could open up your map and you could ping that most wanted person, and literally it would show you in the world like exactly where they were, even if they were through walls and things. It's pretty silly. I don't know why it was like that, but thankfully now they've removed that. So now they've also increased the refresh rate. So before, it's probably like once every 4 seconds or so, it would update the location of the most wanted on your map. And they've updated that refresh rate. It doesn't say to how fast it is now, but I think that's a good change, that it's a little bit quicker to refresh that, especially since you can't ping them anymore. They did the exact same thing for the bounty contract. Now the bounty contract, it used to again be like every 3 or 4 seconds, the circle on the minimap would update where the location of that player was. Now it's going to be a lot faster. Again, they don't say exactly how fast it is, and I haven't had a chance to play yet, so I don't know how fast it is. But again, I think that's a good change. I like it more for most wanteds than bounties, but it'll still be a good change for bounties as well. Redeploy positioning improvements. So if you've played Caldera recently, for some reason, every now and then, if you win your Gulag, you'll spawn across the entire map from your teammates. I'm assuming that's what this is referring to, and that they've fixed that, and that will no longer happen. Big W. And then a very big change here, they've added a bunch of lootable perks. So I'm assuming these will be pretty rare, but it looks like you're going to be able to actually find perks in boxes. And it says only 1 perk can be equipped at a time. So I don't know if this is on top of the 3 perks you already have. I'm assuming it is. So if you get a loadout, I think you can now get 1 more lootable perk. Battle Hardened, Engineer, High Alert, Restock, Tempered, Quick Fix, Scavenger, Point Man. I think this is interesting. I think it's kind of cool. It adds to the BR element of Warzone. In a lot of other BRs, there's no perks or anything. So it's not something you've had to deal with before, but now that's kind of takes it and makes it a more BR thing to have these perks that actually spawn in boxes that you can, get lucky and actually get without even having a loadout. So some more Rebirth Island changes. So evidently the damage scaling was proportional to how close you were to the ground. It was definitely pretty easy to beam people out of the air when they got pretty low to the ground. They've kind of changed that now, and now it's a flat 25% of the total damage that you would have done if they were on the ground anytime they're in the air. So I think that's a good change. 25% actually seems like a lot. So imagine if your whole team shoots somebody, you're still going to be able to down somebody pretty quick out of the air, especially since they're not coming back with full plate. So I think it's a good change, but I think it might need to be tweaked down a little bit below 25%. That still seems pretty high to me. Huge W at the bottom of this patch note. It says FOOTSTEP audio improvements. It says they're looking to bring additional audio improvements to FOOTSTEPs in this season as a priority. So who knows when that's going to be. But that's going to be awesome if they can do that, because it just seems like a lot of the time I can't hear people at all. This is stuff people have been complaining about pretty much since the start of Warzone. So that's awesome. Slide camera lock improvement. So if you're someone who slide cancels a lot, you've noticed this for sure. Sometimes when you slide down a slope or down a staircase or something, it'll if you're looking down, it'll pull your view up. And this is something they've been trying to fix for a really long time. I think it's just a really difficult problem for them to solve with whatever code and system they're working with. But because they mentioned it again here, maybe they're getting closer to solving it. I know they've been trying to do this for a long time, but hopefully we see this in Season 3. Again, I'm not going to cover all these bug fixes, but one that stood out to me was it says they fixed an issue that caused by-station UI selections to reset to the top when attempting to scroll up. I think this is a controller issue, but I just wanted to highlight this for all my controller player friends and console friends. So hopefully that gets fixed, or is fixed already. Obviously, we've got a couple new weapons. We got the M1916 and the Nikita AVT. Unfortunately, in this update, they've disabled private lobbies, so this is going to be really difficult for me to test. They disabled private lobbies because there was some instability issue with them. I'm sure they'll be back relatively soon. I'm planning on, right after I get this video out, loading into real BR matches and testing these things in a live environment. But obviously I won't have the guns leveled yet, so I'll only be able to get to the base damage profile currently. But I think, I'll try to get them leveled as fast as I can and get you guys the information. And I do think the private lobbies will be back pretty soon. Alright, for weapon changes, I'm not going to actually go through every single thing. I'm just going to kind of give a general idea of how they changed these weapons. And I'll link to the clean version of the patch notes. There's a website that does clean versions of the patch notes that's just awesome. So I'll link that below if you want to check out these things yourselves and get all the information. Again, all these changes are already up on TGD. So you can also just go to TrueTechData if you want to see how things stack up nowadays. But starting off, STG 44. So the Russian shorts basically got a buff. So there's less damage range penalty. The recoil control penalty was decreased, so it's not as bad in terms of recoil now. And then for the 7.62, which was like the small caliber mag for the STG, for some reason they removed like all the negatives. So this already was like a laser beam in terms of accuracy with the 7.62 mag, but now there's no damage range penalty, there's no bullet velocity penalty. I'm not really sure why they did that, because that was kind of how it was balanced before. But yeah, the small mag, or the small caliber mag, is now very, very good for the STG. The barrels, again, got a little bit of a change, mostly just buffed, so they really wanted to make the STG a little bit better, I think. So it should be sitting in a pretty good spot now. For the Itra burst, they just basically added 4 bullets to each magazine. I've never seen the Itra in a situation where it's particularly good, so I think it might need some tweaking beyond that. I'm a little bit confused why with the Vanguard burst weapons, they have a drop-off, whereas like the M16, the Cold War AUG, the FR556, those all had their second damage drop-off removed to make them more balanced. For some reason, all the Vanguard burst guns are not that way. So I'm not sure why they did that, or what they're going for there, but I think we'll see more tuning for the Itra sometime in the future. For the VOLK, they did a similar thing that they did the STG, so the 7.62 mags no longer penalize you, really. They basically give you very, very little recoil. It's the small caliber mag, and they don't hurt your bullet velocity, they don't hurt your damage range. Kind of like almost like a no downside attachment for a long range weapon. And then they also buffed the barrels just like they did for the STG. So I think they're trying to push the VOLK and the STG more into the meta realm for this season. So the Vargo, I've talked about the Vargo a lot recently. I thought it was basically the best weapon. Even after the nerfs, I still thought it was pretty much the best weapon, and they've kind of nerfed it again, so pretty much just has more recoil now. All the attachments don't help with recoil as much as they did before. Again, all this is up on TGD. It's still going to be a great weapon, but it's just going to have a little bit more recoil than it did before. So the XM4 caught a little bit of a nerf. They reduced the minimum damage, so the damage in the last drop-off range, from 27 down to 26. So that's live on TGD. Let's go take a quick look at that and see how that compares to how the XM4 was before. So I'm sitting in a car. For some reason, my phone tethering is not working, so I can't pull up the XM4 differences right now on TGD. But I'll overlay it on the screen while I'm talking right now so you guys can see how it affects things. I don't think it's going to change much. It's 1 damage different. In terms of base damages, obviously that scales off the multiplier. Top break, I'm not going to talk about that because I don't care about pistols very much. The headshot multiplier of the Diamatti was reduced, though, so that's something that's probably a good thing. It was kind of a crazy, overpowered SMG. LMGs, the BREN finally caught a pretty big nerf. Not going to talk too much about that, again, just because the updates are on TGD and you can actually compare it to the pre-nerf and post-nerf versions. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that here, but thankfully, finally caught a pretty big nerf, so it's going to be completely out of the meta for Season 3. They're definitely controlling the metas on purpose. Like, it's pretty apparent at this point that they do it purposely. So it is what it is. The Whitley, which is one of the newer LMGs from Vanguard, it had a slight buff to 31 damage for its minimum damage at longer ranges, but it also got nerfed a little bit on ADS times. The 303 British fire rate was increased up to an extra 18% instead of an extra 15%. And then the Gracie Mark 9 barrel had its ADS penalty decreased to minus 11%, down from 18%. So its penalty was decreased, which means this should be a green note on the patch notes, not red. Yeah, they wanted to buff the Whitley a little bit. So the Arma, the new SMG from Vanguard, the 8mm Kurs always said that it increased damage, but it didn't actually increase damage. They finally changed that. So now the fire rate is decreased by 10% rather than 15%. So that's a buff. Again, that should be green, not red. And it also increases damage by 5%. So finally doing what it should do. And this is on TGD, so you can go see how this stacks up with the other SMGs. They also changed one of the barrels. The Type 100, they reduced the visual recoil. Again, I've been saying the Type 100 is really good, and most of the recoil is visual. So I'll have to check this out again, but with the visual recoil reduction, if it's anything significant at all, the Type 100 is going to be for sure sneaking into the meta. They did nerf the 8mm Kurs rounds, so if you want that really good TTK, you're now going to have to use that, I think it's a 36 round mag, but really that was fine before because it shot pretty slow anyway. I love that gun, and with this visual recoil decrease, I think it's going to be even better. So as expected, the OWEN gun and the MP40 caught a nerf, although they weren't exactly what I was expecting. So the OWEN gun 7.62 mags both caught a nerf in terms of overall damage output from headshots and neck shots. And then the rapid fire barrel had a 3% reduction in its added fire rate. So it still adds 16% where it used to add 9. So it's still going to be fantastic. That 50 damage per bullet build is still going to be exactly the same. So the OWEN gun is still going to be completely meta. I'm sure they'll change this soon. But the OWEN gun absolutely is still meta, probably along with the Type 100. And the MP40 will still be pretty good. So the VDD short barrel for the MP40 basically is the reason it was meta. It was a really, really good barrel. They reduced the damage in the second drop-off by 1 for its base damage, and then obviously that scales off the multipliers for shot locations. That is up on TGD, but the way I did it on TGD, it's not always perfectly correct in terms of base damages. I just based my base damages off of, I believe it's upper extremities, and that's not always right. And it causes a lot of problems to not actually know that number, and there's no way to know what that number is. Obviously, now that they put it in a patch note, I can see that it wasn't what I picked. So I have to test this in-game and make sure I have all these damages perfectly correct. They're probably almost all perfectly correct already, but I just need to double-check this and make sure. They also reduced the upper torso, lower torso multiplier from 1.1 down to 1.04, so that's probably 1 damage or 2 damage different for chest shot and stomach shot. So that's a good nerf for the MP40. I think that'll kind of bring it in line with some of the other guns. It's just odd to me that they didn't nerf the OWEN gun more. I think that's a bit of a miss, and I think they will nerf it again. The M1 Garand caught a slight buff, basically just reduces the shots to kill by 1 on limb shots. Not a big difference there. I expected these to switch to assault rifle ammo in this patch, but they didn't, it doesn't look like, so still not going to be very viable, but maybe sometime in the future that will happen. Big notes here, Subsonic, which is the it's the perk or the ammunition slot attachment for all the Vanguard guns that works just like a silencer, no longer has a bullet velocity penalty. So now, compared to the suppressors, it's going to be much more attractive than it was before. Mercury silencer used to have a 10% damage range reduction, and now it doesn't have that anymore, so this Mercury silencer got a little bit of a buff. The MX silencer, these are Vanguard silencers, now decreases your sprint to fire time, or increases your sprint to fire time by 2%, decreases the speed by 2%, but increases the time by 2%. And it increases your damage range by 10%, so that's going to be like a pick for ARs rather than a pick for SMGs, because you don't want to hurt your sprint to fire time, but on ARs you're going to want longer damage range. And then the last thing I want to go through is the sniper changes. So again, I need to go through and check all of these. I've got the damage ranges updated on TGD and most of the information about which ones one-shot and which ones don't on TGD. So the weapons that still have one-shot headshot potential at all damage ranges are the 3-line, AX50, Gorenko anti-tank rifle, HDR, and ZRG. This is basically exactly what everyone was expecting with this patch. Ones that removed the one-shot potential at longer ranges are the Swiss LW3. LW3 is weird. I figured that would be a high-caliber weapon, and it also has very short damage range. I'm not sure why that got nerfed so hard. The Vanguard car, Modern Warfare car, the SPR, the Pellington, Type 99, all in one-shot headshot inside their first damage range. I've got those on the screen as far as TGD calculates them. Again, I need to go through and double-check this because before, damage range wasn't something I was so worried about being precise with on the snipers because it didn't matter. Because you're always going for a headshot, and the damage differences between the different ranges wasn't big, so it wasn't something I was like super concerned with before. Now it really matters, so I need to go be more precise with it. I do think the numbers are pretty close on TGD, but I just wanted to clarify that there could be some little issues here. Dragunov and M82 actually can't headshot one-shot anywhere. Same with the Rytech, unless you use explosive or thermite rounds. Little odd to me that the M82, specifically the ones that stand out to me, the LW3, M82, and Rytech, those don't really fit into me. I don't know why they nerfed those so hard, but you can see the max damage ranges on here. The Swiss is the shortest, unless you put the Ember sighting point on there, and most of them sit around 50 meters of range before they no longer one-shot headshot. They said they were trying to distinguish all the snipers from each other, but yet all of them, all the faster snipers pretty much sit right around 50 meters in terms of damage range. But yeah, again, I've talked way too much about these changes and how I don't really like them overall. But a lot of people do. So hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully it works out. I'd just like to see the flinch tweaked a little, because flinch to me is what makes the snipers too difficult to use. To give them less flinch, but still make them balanced into what everyone. But again, I've talked way too much about this. If you want to see my rants, they're all over Twitter. So you can see on here I put ZRG and meta next to it. It has the fastest bullet velocity. It hits the hardest. It has the fastest fire rate. It's just the best. It's especially the best of the heavy snipers. If you want something with faster ADS time, I think the AX50 is going to be your go-to for that. But the ZRG is just so good. And it's always been very good. It's just that there wasn't a lot of reason to use it instead of the Swiss or the Kar98, because they could still one-shot headshot. And now that they can't, and they didn't change the ZRG at all, the ZRG is just still great. It's going to be pretty much the meta pick, I think. Most people, unless you're trying to run super aggressive, and then it's probably going to be AX50, or maybe you'll still use one of the faster snipers like the Swiss or the Kar98. But I think ZRG is going to be where it's at, especially for me. And if you want to see proof of that, my previous video was me sniping with the ZRG, trying to prepare for this update. I wanted to get it leveled, wanted to use it some. And it's great. It was a good gun. It was a great game. But yeah, that's pretty much the sniper changes in a nutshell. Alright guys, that's all I wanted to cover. It was a lot to talk about. The patch notes were huge this time. I'm going to be trying to get those new weapons tested today. At least the base damages. I won't probably be able to get them leveled and get the attachments tested, but I do have some double XP tokens, so we'll see where I can get with some hours. But those should be up on TGD very soon as possible, especially once they get private matches back up. But if you appreciate all the work I'm doing, be sure to like the video, comment on the video. And if you want to see more content, subscribe. I'm going to try to start pumping out more content again. I know I've been really inactive on YouTube for a long time. That's for a lot of reasons. I've been working super hard on the website, which takes away time from YouTube. But I want to get back into it more, especially with Season 3, and I want to start playing more. So yeah, if you want to see more content, be sure to subscribe. But I appreciate you all. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.